January 1945. Boxted Airfield, Essex, England. A thin layer of frost covers the hardstands of the 56th Fighter Group, America's legendary Wolfpack. For 2 years, these pilots have dominated the skies over Europe, shooting down more enemy aircraft than any other U.S. fighter group in the entire war. They are the elite, the best of the best. But on this bitter January morning, something new arrives on the tarmac, something faster, sharper, and far more dangerous than anything they've ever flown before. But here's the question nobody's asking. Why does America suddenly need the fastest fighter they've ever built? The aircraft is the Republic P-47M Thunderbolt, a machine built for one reason and one reason only: speed. It will go on to become the fastest Allied piston-engine fighter of World War II that actually saw combat. Not a prototype, not a test bed. An operational fighter that would hunt the fastest machines Nazi Germany could produce. And very soon, it would prove that the age of the piston engine wasn't quite over yet. For more untold World War II stories like this, make sure to subscribe. The story begins months earlier, in late 1944. U.S. commanders are alarmed, no, terrified. Germany's newest threats are appearing in the skies. The jet-powered Me-262, capable of over 540 mph. The sleek Focke-Wulf 190D9, nicknamed the Dora, reaching 430 mph in level flight. And the V-1 flying bombs, Hitler's revenge weapons, screaming across the English Channel faster than conventional fighters can intercept. What do you do when your enemy suddenly gets faster than you? America needs a fighter that can chase down these weapons and win. A fighter that can catch what's currently uncatchable. Republic Aviation turns to its chief engineer, Alexander Kartveli, with an urgent order that sounds almost impossible. Build the fastest piston fighter the world has ever seen. Kartveli is a genius. The man who designed the original P-47 Thunderbolt, the rugged workhorse that's been escorting bombers across Europe for years. But now he needs to transform that reliable bomber escort into a high-speed interceptor. The result is the P-47M. It features a boosted R2857C engine with an uprated turbo supercharger. Aerodynamic refinements across the entire airframe. Weight reductions in every possible location. Increased fuel flow to feed the hungry engine. The numbers are staggering. A peak speed of 473 mph in official USAAF tests. No P-47 variant has ever moved like this. Few propeller fighters of any nation ever will. But there's a problem. Early deliveries are rough, dangerously rough. Engines surge without warning. Power dips at critical moments. The aircraft feels unstable at the highest altitudes, exactly where it needs to perform. Several fighter groups test the new Thunderbolt, most rejected immediately. Too unreliable, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Only one fighter group is willing to tame it, the 56th. Their commander, Colonel Hubert "Hub" Zemke, personally tests the new Thunderbolt. After returning from a brutal high-altitude run, his face red from cold, his hands still shaking from the vibrations, he gives a simple order: "We'll make this airplane work, and when we do, nothing will outrun it." But can you really fix an aircraft the manufacturer couldn't perfect? The Wolfpack's pilots and ground crews begin their own unofficial test program. They're not engineers, they're combat veterans who understand machines in a way that goes beyond blueprints. They experiment with oil settings, boost pressures, propeller governors, fuel mixtures, throttle response curves, day by day, flight by flight, adjustment by adjustment. Week by week, they transform the raw prototype into a refined high-speed interceptor. They learn its temperament, its preferences, its limits. They're not just maintaining an aircraft, they're teaching it how to be a weapon. Across the front lines, the Luftwaffe is gathering its last remaining fighters for a series of desperate counterstrikes. Germany still has teeth, and very soon the P-47M will meet them head-on. February 1945, Western Germany. The 56th Fighter Group receives a new mission: protect a major 8th Air Force raid striking the industrial heart of the Ruhr Valley. German radar picks up the incoming bombers. Multiple Gruppen of Focke-Wulf 190D9s and Messerschmitt Bf 109G10s scramble to intercept. For months, these German interceptors have been almost impossible to catch. They strike the bomber formations, then accelerate away before American escorts can respond. It's been a deadly game of tag, and the Germans have been winning. But now, the Americans have something different. At 8:43 a.m., cruising at nearly 27,000 feet, Major George Bostwick of the 63rd Fighter Squadron spots a formation of FW-190D9s lining up for an attack on the B-17s below. The Doras are fast, around 430 mph in level flight. Before the P-47M, U.S. fighters simply couldn't close the gap. They'd watch helplessly as German fighters struck and escaped, but Bostwick pushes the throttle forward. Turbo pressure surges. The engine roars. The P-47M leaps ahead like it's been shot from a cannon. Climbing through thin winter air, he hits a speed near 470 mph, rapidly closing the distance. The German pilots don't even know he's coming. They're used to having time, used to being untouchable. At 8:46 a.m., Bostwick dives into the attack, firing all 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns. The trailing FW-190 rolls away desperately, trying to dive out of reach, the standard German escape maneuver that's worked for months. But for the first time, a thunderbolt keeps gaining. Seconds later, smoke pours from the German aircraft. The canopy separates. The pilot doesn't bail. He's already dead or unconscious. Bostwick has just scored the first confirmed air-to-air kill for the P-47M, but the fight isn't over. Moments later, a group of Bf-109 G-14s tries to break toward the bomber stream from a different angle. They're diving from altitude, building speed, trying to punch through the escort screen. Lieutenant Walter Gresham pushes his own P-47M into a shallow dive, accelerating so quickly that he overshoots his own wingman. He intercepts the lead 109, firing a short, controlled burst, tracers walking across the German fighter's wing route. The Bf-109 shudders, rolls inverted, and the pilot bails out, his parachute blossoming against the gray winter sky. Can you imagine what the German pilots are thinking? For years, the Luftwaffe has been able to rely on speed to initiate or break off combat. Hit and run, strike and escape. Not anymore. By the end of the mission, the 8th Air Force reports something remarkable. German fighters were stopped before they reached the bombers, not through numerical advantage, but through raw speed. The P-47M has tasted combat, and it has changed the rules of engagement. March 1945, near Kassel, Germany. The war is nearing its end, but Germany unleashes its final hope. The jet-powered Messerschmitt Me-262, the fastest operational fighter of the war. Capable of more than 540 mph, it can strike bomber formations almost at will and escape before Allied escorts can even react. Shooting down an Me-262 in level flight is nearly impossible. The speed difference is just too great. It's like trying to catch a sports car with a bicycle. But the Americans have discovered a weakness. German jets are vulnerable during takeoff and landing when their engines produce slow, unstable thrust, when they're committed to a flight path and can't maneuver freely. On March 5th, a flight of P-47MS from the 61st Fighter Squadron spots a lone Me-262 attempting to climb after a failed attack run. The section leader, Captain Gerald Johnson, recognizes the opportunity instantly. The jet is slow, climbing, exposed. He pushes the P-47M into a 20-degree dive exceeding 500 mph, right on the edge of the aircraft's structural limits. The thunderbolt vibrates. The control stick shakes in his hands. The airframe groans under the stress, but it holds firm. Johnson opens fire from several hundred yards. The convergence is perfect. Tracers strike the right engine of the Me-262, which bursts into flames. The jet breaks apart before the pilot can recover, tumbling through the sky in pieces. It's one of the rarest kills of the war, a piston-engine fighter downing a jet. And it's fully documented, gun camera footage, witness statements, wreckage confirmation. A week later, on March 14th, Lieutenant Vernon Richards repeats the feat, catching another Me-262 moments after takeoff and forcing the German pilot to crash land in a field. The Wolfpack becomes one of the only Allied units with multiple confirmed victories against the 262. Speed alone hasn't won these engagements. Timing matters. Altitude matters. Aggression matters, but without the velocity of the P-47M, none of these interceptions would have been possible. The Americans have found a way to challenge Germany's jet age with piston engine technology pushed to its absolute limit. April 1945, Central Germany. The German Air Force is collapsing. Fuel shortages, destroyed airfields, relentless Allied pressure. Only fragments of once elite fighter wings remain operational. Yet units from JG-26, JG-2, and JG-301 continue to launch their last FW-190D9s and Bf-109K4s into combat. And the aircraft they fear most is the P-47M on April 11th, during a large strike on Leipzig. A formation of FW-190D9s attempts a desperate attack on a column of B-17s. They never make it. The 56th is already above them. And faster, Major Bostwick claims another confirmed kill. So does Lieutenant Francis Pinky O'Neill. For the Dora pilots, altitude and speed, once their strongest advantages, are no longer enough. By the final week of April, German resistance in the air has nearly ended. The Luftwaffe that once terrorized Europe is now a scattered collection of pilots flying on fumes, hoping to survive one more day. When Germany surrenders on May 8, 1945, the 56th Fighter Group has roughly 80 P-47MS on strength, making it the highest speed operational piston engine fighter group in the world. The P-47M represented the absolute peak of American piston engineering. It became the fastest U.S. propeller fighter to see combat, a reliable counter to the FW-190D9. One of the few piston fighters with documented kills against the Me-262, a symbol of late-war American technological superiority. But here's the truth that history forgot. It never gained the fame of the Mustang. Its combat career was too short, just 4 months. The jet age arrived too quickly, and piston fighters became obsolete almost overnight. But among aviation historians who know the details, the P-47M remains one of the most underrated fighters of World War II. It was the last great American piston engine interceptor, a machine that proved that even at the very end of the war, the United States could out-engineer and out-accelerate its enemies when it mattered most. It proved that sometimes, the difference between victory and defeat is measured in miles per hour. And for a few critical months in early 1945, the P-47M was the fastest thing in the sky that wasn't a jet.